Hi there, my name is Barry Britnell. I was just reading in Judges 7 about Gideon and his army of 300 men. That's such a great story, but more about that later.
For years, members of my family would travel to Israel, and upon returning they would call me up on the phone and tell me that I needed to go and see it for myself. They knew how much I loved God's Word and how much I loved geography. Finally, my wife Tabitha and I were able to make a trip over there. I cannot adequately express how much I enjoyed that trip. It completely changed the way I read, study, and teach the Bible. I now understand the stories better because I understand the locations where the stories took place. And now, I want to help others understand. On my last trip, I began to talk to people and to lay the groundwork for leading a tour of Israel. I have a tour scheduled for next June and I would love to have you along. Let me tell you a little about it. We'll meet in New York City on June the 3rd and take our overnight flight to Israel. Once we get there, we'll make our way to our first hotel, which is just north of Joppa along the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. We should arrive just about the time the sun sets. Every time I see the sun here, I think about Jonah. He probably saw a sunset very similar to this one as he tried to run from God. One of our first stops will be the port city of Caesarea. We'll see the theater, palace, and hippodrome that were built by Herod the Great. In this same palace, the Apostle Paul was imprisoned for 2 years awaiting trial. We'll also see the inner harbor. Paul probably used this harbor as he traveled during his missionary journeys. From there, we'll climb Mount Carmel to have our first view of the beautiful valley of Jezreel. It is on this mountain that Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal to a contest during the period of the divided kingdom. While we're in the area, we'll also visit the site of Josiah's death during Megiddo and learn the strategic importance of this ancient city. After we leave the Jezreel Valley, we will come to the Sea of Galilee. At 800 feet below sea level, this lake is the lowest freshwater lake in the world. We will stay 3 nights here and visit many sites associated with the ministry of Jesus. For those that are early risers, there's a special bonus of watching the sun rise over the Golan Heights. As you watch this, it is easy to understand why the early disciples chose this beautiful location as their place to live. One of the highlights of our trip will be a boat ride on the sea itself. From this vantage point, you can gain a better perspective of proximity of the locations such as Capernaum, Magdala, the plain of Gennesareth, and Bethsaida. On one of the days that we're in the region, we'll travel north to visit the city of Hatzor and understand its strategic importance. We'll visit the city of Dan and stand upon the high place that King Jeroboam built. And we'll also spend some time in Caesarea Philippi, where Peter confessed Jesus as the Christ. When we leave the area of Galilee, we will head south and end up at one of the most famous cities in the world, Jerusalem. We are going to spend 5 nights in this beautiful city. There are so many things here you could literally spend an entire trip touring Jerusalem itself. You will never forget your view from the top of the Mount of Olives. From that vantage point, so many of the Bible stories come alive because you can actually see the locations where they took place. While we're in Jerusalem, we'll take a tour of the Old City by walking the Via Dolorosa. We'll visit the Western Wall, where Jewish pilgrims still come every day to pray. We'll visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which stands over the traditional location of Golgotha. will stand on the edge of the pool of Siloam, where the blind man was healed. We will sit on the steps of the Temple Mount, where, as a boy, Jesus entered the temple, and will visit the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus prayed on that fateful night. A side trip will take us to Bethlehem, where we will visit the Church of the Nativity. Before we leave Jerusalem, we'll stop by the Israel Museum to see the original Dead Sea Scrolls and many other artifacts that will enlighten us to the time of the Bible. One day we will travel to the south. On our way, we will visit the city that is known in the Bible as the City of Palms, Jericho. Once you see this site, you'll be able to understand why this city was the first one attacked by Joshua during the conquest. Traveling farther to the south, we'll make our way to the Dead Sea. At 1,400 feet below sea level, it is the lowest place on the face of the earth. From the first time you see it, you will be in awe of its beautiful blue waters. Farther along, we'll visit Qumran, the site of the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Finally, we'll make our way to King Herod's mighty fortress of Masada. We will take a tram ride to the very top, where you'll enjoy the wonderful view of the wilderness of Judea. On another day, we will spend the entire time in the Shephelah. This is a very interesting geographical area between the coastal plain and the central mountain range. It is the location of many important Israelite cities. We will visit Beth Shemesh in the Sea of Valley, which is most well known from the life of Samson. From there, we will go to the south and visit the Valley of Elah, where a young shepherd boy named David defeated a giant named Goliath. After visiting this site, I assure you that you will never read that story the same way again. We will also visit Lachish and understand the strategic importance of this city. While we are there, you'll be able to see the siege ramp built by the Assyrians when they attacked the city. From that point, we'll make our way back to the airport and board our flight back home, which brings us to the best part of the trip. When you return home, you'll realize that you're a better Bible student because you are now aware of the locations that are mentioned. And in turn, that makes you a better teacher. Which brings us back to Judges 7. After our first trip to Israel, Tabitha was scheduled to teach the kindergarten class the very next Sunday. The story she was assigned to teach was Gideon and his army of 300 men. The test that Gideon put his men through took place at the spring of Harod, a place that we had just visited less than a week earlier. Tabitha was not only able to show her pictures of the spring, but she was also able to show them pictures of her drinking the water from the same stream. The kids loved it, and in no doubt it made an impression on them.
As I said earlier, I would love for you to come along. This trip is perfect for husbands and wives, for parents and children, for grandparents and grandchildren, or just simply with you and your closest friends. This trip will give you memories that last a lifetime and will make you a better and stronger Christian. Reservations are already starting to come in and space is limited. If you're interested at all, please go to my website at www.exploringbiblelands.com and feel free to contact me personally if you have any questions. Thank you.